Hello, my name is Pat Trueman. I'm director of the War on Illegal Pornography and the founder of pornharms.com. Our guest for a third segment today is Dr. Jill Manning. She is an author and licensed marriage and family therapist in Colorado, former social science fellow at the Heritage Foundation here in Washington, D.C. Her papers are on our website, pornharms.com. Dr. Jill Manning, welcome back.
Thank you.
Dr. Manning, many people talk about pornography as just a bad habit, or even addiction is just a bad habit or just an addiction. But when you're talking about pornography, you think it's something more than that. Tell us about that.
Well, I'm grateful that there is more discussion about this topic because I think it's a social health issue that is impacting negatively more and more people. But I really encourage my clients and people I work with and colleagues to think of this not simply as a bad habit or vice, but really a symptom of underlying beliefs and attitudes about men and women, bodies, relationships that are not serving us well. I love Dr. Marianne Layden's statement that if pornography was going to make us healthy, we would have been healthy a long time ago. I love that statement. It's so true.
Great.
And an analogy I use, for anyone that is religious, and I'm not going to limit this to any one particular faith, but if a person was active in their faith community and was worshiping regularly, whatever that meant for them, and then one day they confessed or admitted that at night they go into their closet and they worship literally a golden calf. They like the way it looks, the way that it feels. They think there's great power associated with this golden calf. You wouldn't just think, oh, that's a weird habit. That's a quirky thing to do. You need to stop that. They would think, wow, there must be some fundamental things awry in how they perceive their relationship to God, who God is and who he's not. Mm-hmm. You'd really have to do some spiritual surgery to get to the bottom of why that habit is in someone's life. And similarly with pornography use, when pornography is in your life, there are certain things you have to buy into and believe, and other things you need to ignore. For example, all of the harm that's done in the industry to produce those products. You have to ignore that because those aren't sexy or arousing ideas. And so I really try to encourage people to think out of the box with this and really get at what is it deep down that they believe or think or attitudes that they have acquired that make the pornography work, and how are those influencing negatively other areas of their lives. And so I just really think it's not just a bad habit or an addiction. It's really a symptom of so much more. And so I encourage people to think of it that way too.
Well, that's a good idea now, but most kids, I think, probably come from a background where there's not pornography in the family, they're not sexually abused, but internet pornography is so available. They begin looking at it and they see, because the brain works, they keep moving to harder and harder material to get the same sexual experience. But as they see this material and see sex acts and the violence that's there and the films that pretend to show rape and that child who doesn't have anything in his background that might portend problems, that child is picking up all this. What's that influence?
Oh, it's quite scary, Patrick. We don't know the full magnitude of this issue, meaning the ready access that children have to highly sexually explicit material and even criminal material that's recording rape and abuse, etc. Never before in history have children had such easy access to such highly graphic and explicit and obscene material. It's going to take us a couple of generations to really see the full impact of that. And when I look at the research and when I work with young people, I'm here to say it's not looking good. The results of that and the impact of that on social development, the impact long-term on relationships is not positive. And as parents and leaders and teachers and those of us in activism work, we need to do all we can to buffer our young people and also arm them with truthful, accurate information about healthy sexuality. Now, that doesn't let the industry off the hook by saying, oh, it's a parent's job to do all that. they have responsibilities too to be socially responsible, and that's a whole other discussion. But.
Well, Dr. Manning, I I wonder, how do we back out of this? I mean, if we trust the numbers when we see them anecdotally about the numbers of kids in high school, a percentage of them that are getting pornography in one way or another, making a steady diet of it, same way in college, the effects that you're talking about are piling up. For that population of pornography consumers, how do they back out of this in order to have a healthy relationship? I mean, there's not that much therapy going on. There's not that many therapists. I'm scared that some of these, frankly, most of these people are going to live with those effects, and uh, that will skew how they view women, family, life in general.
Well, there's a lot to that question that you've posed, Patrick. And I have done clinical work with teenagers. I've worked in residential treatment centers. I've worked in hospital, community centers, private practice, schools. And when I have worked with young people struggling with this, meaning they've developed compulsive masturbation issues or compulsive computer use issues, they've even acted out with other people in abusive ways. It never ceases to amaze me how surprised they are when you start sharing research-based information with them. Were you aware that this increases the risk of this, and this? And their eyes get really big because nobody has shared this information with them. It's this big secret. They're inundated with this explicit material, but they're in a vacuum when it comes to what are the harms. And so I think doing everything we can, doing the work that you're doing, Patrick, and trying to get the message out, what does the research say, and getting that into the hands of young people. When I wrote the book, What's the Big Deal About Pornography, that actually was an actual question that several young people had asked me. Well, what's the big deal about this? And when I started outlining, this is what some of the research says, they were shocked. And even in the opening line of my book, I quote a young man who said to me, Jill, if what you're saying is true, why have we never heard about this before? They don't believe it because nobody's sharing this information with them. But when you get young people that are receptive and open, and because they're stuck, they're really in a bind, and their life has hit a brick wall, and they're ready to listen, they're surprised, and some of them even get angry that nobody shared this with them before. Nobody told them. And when I've worked with people in addictions, they say the same thing. How I wish that someone when I was young would have shared with me the potential harms of getting involved in this material.
Well, it's like you're giving a kid the keys to a race car at the Indianapolis 500. And sure, it might be fun to step on that pedal, but unless they have the training, they're going to crash. This is the way with pornography. Society says, in effect, what's the big deal? There's no harm. You even have the U.S. Department of Justice, which used to vigorously prosecute illegal pornography under our federal laws. They've stopped doing it altogether, and so it's a green light to the pornographers to go after the kids and anyone else in society. But as I said, I don't know how we back out of this. How these kids back out of this, because when they're 25, 30 years old and they've had a steady diet of consumption of pornography, the effects multiplied day after day, month after month. We're headed for trouble.
We are. Well, we already are in trouble in many ways. And, I think of Dr. Jason Carroll's study, Generation XXX, which showed that of young college-age women, young men were researched too, but what was so surprising was when they looked at just the females, women in college today are more accepting of pornography than their fathers were just one generation ago. So we're seeing huge leaps and shifts in beliefs and attitudes about pornography. And I think part of the answer is just continuing to persistently get the message out, looking for opportunities to fund and conduct credible research that looks at this in a reliable way, and just keep pushing forward. It needs a persistent, clear voice.
Give me the name of your book again, Dr. Manning.
It's What's the Big Deal About Pornography? A Guide for the Internet Generation.
Excellent. And Dr. Jill Manning's papers are available on pornharms.com, our website. Our guest today has been Dr. Jill Manning. Thank you very much, Jill, for being with us.
Oh, my pleasure.